Alrighty, good morning everybody. Happy Thursday. It's June 22nd, 2023. And we'll get started here. I'll quickly go through what happened here yesterday. If you were in the weekly webinar yesterday, you saw we talked about some of this stuff already, but for any of you watching out there in YouTube tomorrow morning, just remember we don't really release this stuff till the day after. Let's look at what happened. So what did we say yesterday? We said there was a decent bullish signal from the low of the day before. However, when the bulls took it up, the bears swatted it right back down off the 38% retracement. And, that was one of the levels we were watching. So going into yesterday morning, we said they kept getting swatted from the 38 and the bears continued to push it back lower. So pretty much if they could get through those lows of the day before, remember we had that big wick down, I think on the daily or something like that. I don't want to... so the day before had a big wick down. And we said if we break the low of that wick, even though it looked like a nice reversal candle from the daily perspective, that opened us up for a push back down, to at least down to the major retracement we were watching and then the scaffolding. Well, what happened? The market just went sideways, right? This is the whole day right here, just chopped back and forth, back and forth. The sexiest thing is that, and there were actually two things, and I don't think I mentioned it in the daily review, but I think the sexiest thing that happened yesterday was this big rally up to fail literally nearly to the tick off this zone here that we actually, I believe I shaded it in yesterday. Oh no, I shaded the one up there. So we talked about this right here. We had a whole smattering of levels all sitting right there, and they came right up into that zone, didn't even break the top by a tick, and then got this major sell-off into the end of the day. So that right there, really, really sexy opportunity with no risk. Another sexy opportunity was the trade I took. Again, if you were in the weekly webinar yesterday, you saw I had a live trade on shorted from 16.5. I literally took 1 point of risk, and the trade was, and look at this. Push down, 38% retracement, scaffolding level, the 200 moving average, and VWAP all sitting right there. And I went ahead and my short was at 16.5, and I was able to get 5 points off, 10 points off. And then I had a runner, and that's when I think we started the recording. I had that final contract on, and I was looking for a push down to the retracement level at 4,400. Unfortunately, you guys saw what happened. It came right back up, and it started to peter out. So I took another 6 points and closed the rest of the position out. So that right there, unbelievable opportunity. This right here, unbelievable opportunity. And then the other really sexy thing, outside of some of the other beautiful rotations we got off our levels, was right out of the open here, as we were selling off and getting down through this scaffolding, we popped right up to the 200 moving average. It broke it by less than 1 point, and then you could have caught easily 5, 10, maybe 15 points to the downside here before it attempted to come back up. So lots of great opportunities, beautiful holds off levels nearly to the tick or with very limited risk. Despite it, again, if we zoom out, despite it being sideways here, I think that our roadmap levels essentially highlighted the major rotations here. If you look, let's bring it back here to yesterday. I mean, each level we look at is literally, it's almost like it perfectly bifurcated that whole range right there. The top end of the range was our level here, right? And the only thing that we're missing was maybe having a level coming across the bottom of the chart right there that we might have held nearly perfectly there. So again, sideways action and still plenty of beautiful opportunities. So all right, let's get into this morning. As you can see, we're back down at the bottom end of the range, holding below the low of the day before. There you go. Another beautiful low risk opportunity off those levels for some pretty decent pullback so far this morning. So let's go up to the higher time frames and let's see what we're seeing up here. So on the daily, remember I said yesterday, let's go back and scroll back to the previous candle. Remember, there's that big wick to the downside, and I said, it looked like a decent reversal candle if we had some good bullish movement the next morning there, right? But if we broke the low of that candle, then coming down lower would be a decent expectation. At that time, we didn't have any type of divergence. Remember I said, as the market was pulling back here on the daily, there really were no signs for a bullish divergence. Well, we're starting to get it off the low of today's candle. Now, does that mean that we're just going to hold the overnight low right here and just pop out and just because there's a potential signal? No. But we're going to watch this and we'll see how today plays out. If we start to get what looks to be a good kind of apex here on the RVI, well, look what we have. We have this push up to higher lows, but we have a push down to lower lows on the indicator. So there's definitely something starting to show up. And remember, this is just kind of an anticipation right now. We're going to watch this and see how this develops and come back tomorrow morning and see how the candle closes. So that's something kind of interesting. We're finally getting our first clue for a bullish rotation on the daily. Okay, on the 4 hour. 4 hour, I would say, for all intents and purposes, doesn't really have anything super sexy going on from the current overnight low right now. You could argue that, stochastic have pushed to a higher low technically here, right? Pushed up to this higher low compared to this previous swing. But in price, we did push to a lower area. So there are some divergence arguments from that perspective. The RVI, also you could kind of extrapolate out. So if you came all the way back to these swings back here, whoops, you could say, hey, we have pushed to new highs. But in terms of RVI, and I keep hitting the wrong button, in terms of our RVI, we'd keep pushing much lower. So there's this divergence forming. But as you guys know, that's not the type of stuff I like to do there. It's just too crazy. At least when we go to the daily, we actually have a decent peak to peak. We're not skipping over, weeks of price action. So I'm not a huge fan of relying on that. And then on the hourly here, we did get a decent little bullish signal from this overnight low. But keep in mind that we've been getting bullish, bearish, choppy price action here for the last 3-4 days. So just because we have another little bullish signal on the hourly here is not a, I forgot to mark, we've got a bearish signal right there off that candle as well. So the candle that closed at 6 a.m. is got a bearish signal. So we got a lot of back and forth, right? And it's really not giving us a super clear picture right now. Like I said, the daily's starting to show something, but we're going to have to see how it closes today. And the hourly definitely has a signal. So right now, and the 4 hour is just not really the type of pattern I want to see right now. But we're going to watch. We'll see. If the price action this morning is really strong, and that is the low of the day that we just made here off the overnight lows, and it does start to appreciably get through yesterday, then, especially with this potential daily signal, then we might start to get a clearer picture. But for now, it's still a little bit tough to call. And I think we've been saying that here for a couple days. It's just been kind of wonky price action. Obviously, the trend is to the downside here for the last few days. But when you zoom out and you look at the bigger picture, everything still is looking very, very strong, right? So how deep is the pullback going to get? I don't know if anyone could truly answer that. So given that situation, and I don't know why, there we go. Given that situation, given that I would say personally, I don't have the clearest picture until maybe midway through the session today or towards the end of today. We're just going to take it like we take it conditionally, right? So we've got, and let me bring this over here. We've got some decent lines in the sand for the bulls and the bears. And the first line in the sand is going to be that overnight low. So Overnight low here is 43.93. And like I said, I'm not going to give you a confident call that I expect it to break lower or I expect it to break higher in this situation. But that is going to be kind of the first line in the sand outside of all the levels we look at. So if the bulls do defend this overnight low, then, and remember, it could just be kind of a peek through, or maybe they come to this scaffolding and then they come back up here. If that happens, then we got to look at what is going on up top in terms of potential resistance if the bears want to continue to be really strong. So what do we have? We've got the close of the day before. If we can just pop up through this swing high from, an hour ago, we've got the close of the day before at 44.10. It also happens to be, if you look at this really prominent swing back here, it also happens to be just a tick away from that prominent swing that honestly we haven't really gotten through and come back to test just yet. So I do like that we have some agreement over in that area. So if the bulls do pop up through this little swing high that we made an hour ago, that pocket of a couple ticks in there around 44.10 would make sense to find some resistance there. Even if it's just for a little micro pullback to bounce again, that makes sense, and we see it happen over and over again. That's why we watch this kind of stuff. So I'm not going to mark this as a swing high low right here because we already have something on the chart that's going to light our eyes up if we get over in that area. So we've got 44.10. The scaffolding you should already have on your chart around 16 there. And then we're right up into 50% of yesterday. And remember, with a bearish market, if the bulls can't get up through 50% of the previous day, given the bearish look right now, well, that's a clue that the bears are still in power and it's probably going to come back down. So if they can't get through 50% of the day before, that is a clue. That should give you a little bit of a piece of information. If they get through 50% of the day before, well, we have the larger fib down. So we have, remember the major high of Friday of last week? That basically, let's just look at this. So we got the swing all the way down to this new low. Now remember, I have to qualify this every morning. If we push lower, we're going to have to redraw the fibs that I have on the screen right now. But if we hold the overnight low and we continue to bounce, which honestly it doesn't look like it, especially with this really bearish hourly signal right now. But if they do hold it, we've got 3 major retracements above. And if we do push lower, you're going to have to come back in and redraw this whole fib for the major sell-off we're getting. So what are those levels? We have 44.31.5. We have 44.43.5, and then we have 44.55.25. So throw them up there, but remember, it might change here in just a couple minutes if we continue to sell off. Outside of that, I mean, the high of the day before here is going to be basically right in between those two fibs, or between those two retracement levels, I should say. And we also have decent agreement up here with the scaffolding level and the 61.8 at this moment. Now, like I said, it does seem like we're probably going to push lower, so these are going to probably shift, but for now we've got a little bit of some confluence right around 54.53. Any further than that, and I got to be honest, there's really not much between the scaffolding around 53 and the next level up around 44.79.25. Yes, there was this swing here that, interestingly enough, we held nearly to the tick as the price pushed below it and came back, came right to it and failed. So the fact that we already kind of used that area kind of makes me less interested in it at this point. So if we do get up there, maybe we've got something around 44.60, but I think it's a pretty clean shot up into the next scaffolding and the high of the year, right? I think this is the yearly high up here at 44.93.75. And I didn't talk about news. I see Neil's typing, and I feel like he's going to say, did you talk about the news? Would you please post pics of your 4-hour, 60-minute, 512 charts back to June 7th with RVI and Stoke panels compressed? So I can see all the levels in Discord when I expand stationary charts. Not possible with YouTube videos. Yeah, Neil, send me a message so we can talk about that. I'm not completely sure what you want to see. So yeah, send me a message. But yeah, when I saw you typing, I thought you were going to mention the news, and I should mention that. I should have talked about it when we started. We've got the jobless claims already happened. You know, pre-market, it wasn't really a huge spike. There was a little bit of a spike. But we do have Powell speaking again at 7 a.m. and we have the existing home sales at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. So I've got to throw that up there on my 3-minute chart here and my 1 minute. Yeah, 1 second. Give me 1 second and put this up here. 7 a.m. Again, just a visual reminder that Powell's going to start speaking at 7 a.m. and we have the release of existing home sales. And, you know, there could be a little spike in volatility just from the news release. And then, you know, who knows with Powell speaking what could potentially happen in the market. And we do have the Fed balance sheet coming out at the end of the day. So, again, with this type of stuff, we could see choppy action. And that's why I said yesterday, remember yesterday I said with Powell speaking, it could just be a choppy market, and then look what happened. It was just totally balanced, totally sideways. So today could be similar, or we could just start to get the beginning of some type of big directional move. Remember, I said that the daily is starting to show, you know, the potential for a bullish divergence. So again, we're not guaranteed a push from that, but I will watch. So there's a question about, can I zoom out to see the prices better? And I'm not exactly sure what you're asking for me to do. Is there a way to zoom out to see the prices better? Not exactly sure what you mean by that. Zoom out to see the prices better. Yeah, I don't, Jerry, if you could just let me know what you mean by zoom out to see the prices better, because all the prices are on the right hand side of the screen unless you're talking about different prices. And so I don't know what exactly you mean by that. If I post a picture, you definitely can open it and expand it. It's always going to be in this type of resolution, which is really, really high. So let me see if very small to see. There should be a way for you to maximize the charts that I'm sharing right now so that you see it a little bit clearer. Or what you can do, Jerry, is send me a message so we can just clarify what you mean and I understand it a little bit better, because I'm not sure what you mean. I'm assuming that you mean that the chart you see right now that I'm sharing, everything looks really, really small. There should be a way for you to actually maximize it and take up the entire screen. So if you have like a 25 inch screen, you could maximize it and it should expand and you should see a little bit clearer. But that is the nature of having to broadcast this 3 chart screen, is I do kind of need this high resolution. But yeah. So let me bring this down to my 1 minute. Okay. And let's continue to look at some of the levels we're going to deal with here. So above us, we basically established, we've got the daily power levels, which you guys should be aware of. We've got the scaffolding. And then there are these 3 temporary retracements. Like I said, I don't know. I mean, assuming we hold the low, they'll stay. But it looks to me right now like we're probably going to break that low. So let's talk about that. We've got a couple minutes, 5, 6, 7 minutes until the market opens. We talked about potential resistance spots above us. Stationary individual pick can be expanded a lot. Yes, yeah, I can send a stationary picture in the chat here in a second after we finish, so that you could maximize it, and then you see, yeah, you'll see it's a gigantic screen that I'm sharing from. So that's why it probably looks so small right now. So let's look at what happens here if the market does break below the overnight low. We've got a couple things to talk about. We've already mentioned that we have technically our smaller fib leg, which was just this little leg here where we got the push, the pullback, the push, and then this little 25 to 38% retracement of that leg, and then this next major push up. So we have this smaller leg right here. I personally really like this 4106 low all the way up, and it just so happens that the 38 is our major area we've been watching, the weekly resistance from a week or two ago. The 61.8 happens to be almost exactly one of the other levels we're watching. So I like that. But what I want to talk about here is just the smaller leg. So this little tiny one that we're currently in, this last bullish kind of breakout level or leg. The 38 they didn't really respect, they popped through. The 50 they right now, if we zoom in, and let me get rid of this. We zoom in over here. The 50 was this dotted line you see, which happens to be our holy orange power level this morning almost. They really they didn't do much with it. At least on the hourly here, you can see it's just been chopping all around. So that one's basically done with, if you ask me. So I'm going to actually get rid of this and bring this out to about 6 a.m. this morning, because it's basically, or this morning, it's basically done with. We just chopped around, and we're already pushing lower again. So really, we just have the 61.8 left, and we talked about this yesterday, 43.78. So down below us here, we've only got a couple minutes. We've got our scaffolding, which you should already have on your chart, around 43.88, 89. We've got that retracement I mentioned at 78. And then we've got all the same levels that we've been talking about down below there. We've got this pocket 67 to 69-ish, the scaffolding around 60, the next pocket right around, say, 46 to 48, and then the scaffolding down at around 43.32, then the swing around, and the kind of the structure zone that starts around 43.22 half, right? So all these are the same levels. We've got 43.08 quarter, the scaffolding, and then this next major swings, then the beginning of a structure zone at 42.87. Okay, and then we're down to 42.70.75, the scaffolding, and then the next scaffolding about 42.55.75. And that's right where that larger major retracement basically lines up with our scaffolding at 55.75. That's probably enough to the downside here this morning. We're looking at 150 points down. So I think that should cover potential support zones down below. And like I said, I'm starting to, with the daily potential bullish signal, I'm starting to watch for what, maybe the beginning of a rotation, but we don't quite have it just yet. And like I said, we'll have to revisit it halfway through the day, or maybe at the end of the day when everything closes, to really get a bigger picture. Now, if the bulls are strong, and we have to talk about different scenarios, if the bulls are strong and they can get through the close of the day before, okay, 50% of the day before, and the high of the day before up there at 44.38, well then, that's going to be a pretty good little clue that maybe the beginning of the rotation is going to start. But until we can get through the high of the day before, at least right now, we're probably going to still be stuck in this bearish movement. So I think that's where we're at this morning. I wish I had a perfect clear picture for you. The reason we do this every morning, we follow the same process for finding levels and signals, is because on those very special days when we do get rotations, typically we get the signals and we can anticipate it. So I'm just looking at the chat here. Try expanding this, you expand it past the limit of your monitor. Open in browser. Yeah, you have to open, if you get the pictures, open in browser is going to allow you to get the full picture, which is going to be a gigantic, 3440 by 1440 picture, typically. So that wraps things up here. Market's going to open in 45 seconds, basically. And the last thing that we typically do here is we look to the shortest time frame chart where we have some of our moving averages. And it happens to be that this is another morning where we're right near the 200 and the VWAP. And so those are the only real other levels that we would watch, and we're basically testing them at the moment. Okay, so we've got Hopeful, the 200, and VWAP sitting right here. So we're basically at really the only other pocket that would make sense as resistance right now. And above that is the low of the day before. And like I said, getting through the low of the day before, the close of the day before, 50% of the day before, all these are going to continue to give us more confidence that maybe the rotation will start. But if the bears swat it down off one of these areas, or even swat it down off of this level we're at right now, like I said, Holy Orange Power Level 200 VWAP, it makes sense as a potential resistance. So you probably could have took that short if you were feeling confident in that. But that's that first pocket. All right, I will see you all in the morning tomorrow to finish out the week. And again, happy trading. Remember to be careful, be nimble. The market is always changing, so even though we might have a clear picture of something, you never know what they're going to throw, what curveball they're going to throw at us. So have a great day, and I'll see you in the morning.